push-button failover solution for every business. We have two quick housekeeping announcements, and then I'll pass it over to Ken. First is that you're going to receive a copy of this presentation. We're going to be sharing these slides with you, as well as a replay of this video. We are recording this. Please do use this question tool throughout the presentation. Ask questions as Ken is going through these slides. We are going to have a Q&A at the end, and one lucky participant is going to be winning a free prize. So we are doing a giveaway at the end of this presentation. So be sure to ask. Enjoying their pizza, if there were any problems with that. Now you see our host is Ken Shaw. He is the founder and CEO of Infoscale. His contact info is also here for you. So let me go ahead and pass it over to Ken Shaw.
Thanks, Carla, and good morning, everybody. I guess good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. Today, we are going to talk about trends in data protection in 2015. And then we're also going to look at 5 reasons why you need to rethink your current disaster recovery solution. After that, I'll tell you a little bit about Infoscale as a company, and then we'll do the Q&A and the prize giveaway. And in which of those 3 prizes you think it should be, we'll do a little vote, and we'll tally up the results, and we'll that's the prize we'll be giving away. And while you're thinking about that particular question, I actually have an interactive poll. This is one of the features of the GoToWebinar software we like a lot. Lets us gather a lot of information about our audience. And so we asked this particular question so that we can make sure that we're tailoring the content of these webinars to the right folks. So I know you're eating your pizza, but put it down and reach forward and click a button and let us know how big you are. Why do we use this? 2 reasons. Firstly, I'm trying to make sure that I tailor my examples in this webinar to the appropriate size of company. And secondly, for future webinars, we want to make sure that we're tailoring the content to the sorts of folks who are actually showing up to these things. Great. All right, about 70% of you voted. Interesting. Today we've got 41% between 0 and 100, 19% between 100 and 500, then some middling categories, and another 20% bigger than 1,500. So a bit of a U-curve today. Interesting. All righty. Well, let's dive into the meat of the presentation, shall we? Trends in data protection in 2015. The first one is a bit of an eye chart, but the point of this slide is really that we are living with a false sense of security. So a few statistics. Operations are well managed. Semantics got IDC has tried to quantify the damage that a single hour of downtime costs businesses in America, and the result is $20,000. And then the Institute for Business and Home Safety has that the average cost of downtime for a business is $20,000 an hour. So what's the net of all this? The net of all this is that we have never been sort of worse prepared when it comes to disaster recovery. And you got to ask yourself why that is. So I want to take you back in time. I want to take you back to 1995. It's the year that like Aladdin came out in the cinemas, and I think Jurassic Park, right? And on the left-hand side here, you've got a depiction of what your data protection landscape looked like back then. You had a data castle. All of your key assets were in there, right? That's where your servers were. That's where your apps were. If you were worried about endpoints, you knew that they were company-owned devices running some flavor of Windows, and they were connecting in over a VPN to the network. Well, fast forward to today, and you've got the messy red graphic on the right-hand side of this slide, where all of a sudden the data center, which used to be sort of relatively straightforward for data protection, is a complete mess. You've got apps that are out in the cloud. You've got apps that are on-prem. You've got VM sprawl with multiple hypervisors. You've probably got VMware. You've probably got Hyper-V. You've got devs at least 4 different operating systems. It could be a Windows machine, it could be a Mac, laptop, but just as likely it's an Android or iOS powered tablet or phone. So user land has become completely fragmented, and all of this fragmentation creates massive complexity. And that complexity directly correlates into coverage gaps and risk. And not just risk for the businesses we work for, but risk for you, right? You're the one who's going to get fired if something goes wrong. You're the one whose neck is on the line. And so we got to find a solution to this fragmentation problem. Yeah, the CEOs and heads of product at data protection companies have actually been making your life a lot harder, right? And they generally want to present you with a sucker's choice. Now, when I first told my marketing team about this idea, they didn't know what a sucker's choice was, so maybe stone cold or your fries to be stone cold. Well, of course, that's an idiotic dichotomy. What you really want is the third option. You want your steak and your fries to be hot. But that isn't sort of presented to you. And a sort of, this is an apocryphal story, but there is a similar thing going on in data protection land. When you go out to buy a solution, you're often asked to choose an architecture. So, for example, let's compare and contrast cloud backup with appliance-based backup, right? 2 of the most common architectures today. The truth is that both of these solutions have good things and omnipresent, anything connect to it. But for means you've got to rely on your vendor security. But then appliance-based backup hardware fails. The management of multiple appliances is a complete bear. So none of these solutions are sort of the perfect solution. And so one asks oneself, isn't there a better way? Isn't there a solution that can combine the best of both worlds? And thankfully, the technology has marched on, and there is now and that lived on as the king of data protection all the way through to the 90s when disk arose in the sort of after shadow of the client-server revolution. Then in the noughties, straight to cloud backup arose. Companies like SOS, Carbonite, and Mozy pioneered this. I founded and ran one of those companies. But the problem with direct cloud backup is that it was slow, and it really didn't work for enterprise workloads. So in 2014, most analysts came forward and said, look, fellas, hybrid cloud backup is what you need. You want to combine the best of disk with the best of the cloud, and that's the architecture you should use. But here we are in August 2015, on the cusp of 2016, and there is a new technology paradigm which you need to be aware of. It's called DRaaS or DRaaS, depending on who you ask. And this is a technology that builds on the shoulders of giants, right? It adopts all of the benefits of hybrid cloud backup. So it's got some on-prem kit and some cloud capability, and it delivers push-button failover. And this is really what you should be thinking about if you're looking to modernize or refresh your data protection regime. Now, what's interesting about DRaaS is it's not well understood. We just commissioned a study, actually, and we surveyed several hundred IT department runners in companies ranging from 100 employees up to 5,000 employees, and we found some interesting things. When asked, can you fail over to a second location, most businesses said no. And in fact, if you ask the question, And if you look at why not, why haven't they invested in that kind of failover tech, the number one reason by far was cost or price. After that, there are some other leading causes. You can see it here on screen, like solution reliability, compatibility, security. But the overwhelming reason that businesses aren't protecting themselves today is because of the perceived or actual cost of, robust data protection and disaster recovery solutions. Reason number one is that DR today is confusing. If you find yourself confused when you're thinking about DR, that's okay. You're in good company. When we were all taught, back in college, how to think about DR or data protection and tertiary storage, these are the buckets we were given: archive, backup, DR, failover. And we analyzed them through three vectors: RTO, RPO, and TCO, or time to recover, the point at which we recover, and the cost. Well, firstly, InfraScale says that you should add a fourth vector to your evaluation criteria, and that's security. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But if you just sort of look at this from left to right, you can see that whilst the RTO awesome RTO, an awesome RPO, we want it to be secure, and we want a really low price point. But the reality of modern solutions is that that doesn't exist. Here on screen we have 6 different architectures that have been variously described as disaster recovery by the analysts and leading lights of the industry. And you're not actually meant to read all the text on this slide, it's a bit of an eye chart. But what I do want you to do is take your eye to the right-hand column and run your eye down that and look for the pattern that we're searching for, right? The pattern is 5 bubbles of awesome for RTO, 5 bubbles of awesome for RPO, 5 bubbles of awesome for security, and a single $sign for cost. Backing up to tape and storing off-site, whether it's SAN level snapshots that are replicated to a second location, all the way through to having a standby data center, none of them actually meet that criteria. And so that then is a setup for my second interactive poll. So here we're going to ask you all what your situation is when it comes to failover DR. So I know you're enjoying the pizza, but put it down, wipe those greasy little fingers of yours, reach forward and click a button and tell us, what's your situation for failover DR? A, you can do it in under 60 minutes already. This is failing over to a second location, mind you. So can you fail over to a second location? B, I wish I could fail over. Only half of you have voted, folks. Come on, let's get as many people as we can into this survey. We're at 63. All right, doesn't look like I'm going to win. We've only got 67% of voting. We're going to have to call it there in the interests of time. So the results are 36% of you can fail over to a second site in under 60 minutes. That is really impressive. 57% of you says, I wish I could do that, but I can't afford it. And 7% of you say, I don't think I need failover DR. Fair enough. For those 7% of you that don't think you need failover DR, you're probably in the wrong webinar. All right, so let's go to our second trend. Okay, DR today is expensive. Now, the reason I run that poll there is that 57% of you just said that you don't have DR and the reason is cost. What InfraScale does is delivers to you the business benefit of failover at the simple low price point of backup. So the traditional approach to DR, very hardware intensive, and in fact, you get your production site, your failover site, it can actually cost you up to 3 times as much to set up a full-on DR location because of the bandwidth, people, and software required. It's expensive to implement, it's complex to test and use, and it's vulnerable to attack, right? What InfraScale does is this. We give you a thin cloud edge appliance, the cloud failover appliance, depicted here in the middle of the screen. Now, here on screen, we've got a happy user use case. On the left, we've got users connecting. What do you do? Well, you log in on your iPad or on your laptop or any browser to the InfraScale console, and you say, recover my environment. InfraScale then recovers and virtualizes all of the systems that have been affected, and you've got fine-grained control over that recovery sort of resolution. That could be a single VM all the way up to an entire data center. Then you can tell InfraScale where you want it to recover it, right, on the local appliance or up in the cloud. And then your users can keep recovering. The entire process takes less than a minute, and we're going to see a demo of this later. So what this gives you is push-button failover from anywhere, right, from the cloud or the appliance. And recovery in 15 minutes or less, and that's actually a guarantee from us, right, that 15 minutes or less number break up with your current backup, right? DR today ignores lots of data. So here on screen, I'm diagramming a backup exec rig. At the bottom, I've got Active Directory or databases and apps, and I'm backing those up to a server which puts data onto a media server. We're all pretty familiar with this. Now, of course, the problem is this doesn't work for road warriors, home users, branch offices, or smartphones, right? They just can't get into the network. And if I want to do archiving, well, usually that connotes little running man here, right? And taking physical tapes off-site. Doubly expensive, and that then lets me fail over. Protection company, how would you design it? Well, here's how I would design it. I'd get rid of the archive site, the DR site. I'd only worry about my production infrastructure. I would then have a magical cloud that delivers DR services, backup services, and archive services in a single solution. And so because it uses the cloud, physical servers, your virtual servers, and your desktops, they get protected. But the rest of your infrastructure, that gets ignored. Not so with InfraScale. Our hybrid cloud architecture means that you can protect all of these things simply. If you remember me saying earlier, the cloud is omnipresent. Everything can connect to it, right? And so therefore, everything can be protected. And what do I mean by everything? More than 100 versions of the major operating systems on the market, right? Everything from novel NetWare through to Windows Server, through to AIX 5, 6, and 7, VMware, Hyper-V, all the major Linux distros. If we go down into laptop land, then we're talking about OS X and got you covered from mobiles to mainframes. And so that brings us to reason 4, that you should break up with your current system, and that is that DR today requires you to be MacGyver. And I loved MacGyver. That was a wonderful TV show, but it's not how I want to run my data protection practice. And what do I mean by this? Well, existing technology makes you cobble together with, baling twine and sticky tape cost storage for the backup. You've got to then get some cloud replication technology and forget about any of this being affordable. With InfraScale, on the other hand, using our hybrid cloud technology, you get a hyper-converged data protection box. And so I was at a conference having a beer with takes care of all this for us, and we laughed. You can find designers and product managers and engineers huddled around whiteboards, literally asking themselves, what would a magic backup box look like? And, not surprisingly, we have an opinion about it. We think it would include all the technology you find in WAN accelerators, right? So that going to have infinite capacity and be good for long-term storage, but it's also going to have all of the local storage and compute RAM and network resources you need to run that. It's going to be secure. One of the things people don't realize is that these high-profile hacks at Sony and OPM involve backup systems. Why? Because backup systems are big, fat, juicy targets. If you were a hacker, wouldn't you go after the backup system? It's the one place that the organization aggregates all of its data, and it's usually not secured, right? Now, when you buy a data protection solution, for goodness sake, make certain that it has encryption at rest built into it. Never have, and once with a key that we have and you never have. And that means, excuse me, that we've got to cooperate to decrypt that data. It's a bit like a safety deposit box at a bank where the bank manager and the customer has to cooperate. And this is why that we are chosen by the Department of Justice, by police departments across the country, by the US Coast Guard to protect their data, right? So look for security and encryption at rest in whatever solution you're going to buy. Is that DR today captures the wrong data in the wrong place. The old way of doing data protection was to buy a box, fill it up, buy another box, fill it up, buy another box, fill it up, and you were trapped in this, ongoing, constant hardware hamster wheel. Well, with InfraScale, we break that model. Instead of more space, meaning work, and then scale from there. That allows you to unlock the unlimited capacity of the cloud. Now, cloud spillover technology uses intelligent policy-based software to move data from the appliance up to the cloud and back again, because it understands that not all data requires expensive on-prem enterprise disk. It lets you spill over data to the cloud based on age and value. This eliminates the need for local appliance capacity planning as you grow, and there's no longer any need to provision it. And when I say cloud, what am I talking about? Well, you can use our cloud, your cloud, or any cloud. Our cloud is run out of 12 data centers around the world, and you can use that. It's very popular. Your cloud could be your own private cloud infrastructure, or then any cloud. You can use Amazon or Azure as you like. So if you've already got a cloud provider, use our technology there. And so, folks, that brings us to the end of the presentation component of the webinar. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about InfraScale itself, and then we're going to do the Q&A. So InfraScale's been around since 2006. We've got 1,000 channel partners. We're protecting more than 1 million devices today, where a device is usually a physical or virtual server. Over 100 petabytes of data and 20 billion data objects. We believe that every company has the right to recover their data from a disaster quickly, easily, and affordably. Everyone needs the peace of mind that comes with knowing their business data is always safe and available. We use the cloud, we use smart software instead of dumb, expensive hardware, and we make DR push button simple. In the bottom left, you can see what we do: cloud backup, DR, archiving, and file sharing. And we sort of think of Salesforce as our spirit animal. right? Where Salesforce came along and took CRM deploy tomorrow, and we are only going to charge you $5 or $10 a month per user. So we think that the same sort of disruption is needed in data protection. The industry is dominated by fat old geriatric companies, right? I'm talking about the EMCs and Veritases and the others who are innovating and bringing change to. And so just yesterday, we actually announced a really new exciting product. It's our Cloud Failover appliance, which we believe will truly transform DR. It's a thin cloud edge appliance that you can buy in physical form or virtual form. It includes all of our backup and archiving technology, but its core promise is a 15-minute failover. With the push of a button, you can fail over your environment to another location, and that 15 minutes is guaranteed, right? So this solves all of your complex recovery scenarios with the push of a button. Looks like this. Here in the middle, you've got the CFA, the Cloud Failover Appliance. On the left, you've got all the rig that we're protecting. The Cloud Failover Appliance pushes anything it reads up into the cloud. So you've got redundant storage. You've got the local capacity and the cloud capacity. You, in your bed from your iPad, can control all of this through our centralized web-based dashboard. And so if things go down, if Hurricane Sandy hits, you've got the ability to It's this remarkably simple, secure, and affordable approach to disaster recovery, right? It's simple because it gives you push-button boot, recover in 15 minutes or less, boot on the appliance or in the cloud, and it protects everything. It's secure because it's got encryption in transit and at rest, private key encryption, endpoint protection, and two-factor authentication built in. And it's affordable because no more do you need to worry about buying more and more hardware on that hard who are all covering us, right? Gartner just gave us their cool vendor in business continuity and disaster recovery because of the technology that you've heard me talk about today. And lastly, I really think the best thing to do is actually get We've got folks in your region. Today's the webinar for the Mountain Territory, so Rich Steen and Chase Roth would love to hear from you. And they'll give you an appliance that you can deploy in your network, use, and thump on. If you would like a free evaluation unit, use the questions tool and type in, I would like an eval unit. My name is Ken. My email address is ken@everscott.com. My phone number is blah, blah, blah. So and then our marketing team will actually scrape through the logs and organize that for you. So you don't even need to fill in a form, just dump it right into the questions tool. And that's it, folks. I'm a little bit over time. Sorry about that, but we got through it. What I'm now going to do is actually pop our last poll where we sort of are taking your temperature, as it were, with but you know, I'm pretty interested in that little failover thing you were just talking about. C, I'm deploying new equipment, and when I'm modernizing my production, I'm looking into modernizing my protection. Or D, I'm happy with my system, I'm just learning, thanks for the free pizza. Let us know which of these are you, and then Carla and I are now going to do the Q&A. So Carla, do you want to answer the first question?
Sure, Ken. Let's go up to the top of the questions and let's see what has come up. So I see a question. Well, first a couple of comments from Lawrence. Lawrence says, thanks for the pizza, arrived right on time. That's great. Michael says, how can this be beneficial to companies that already have dual data centers with failover. Michael, are the RTO and price comparable to our solution? Through Ken's presentation.
And I'd say it's almost, I mean, Carla's hit the nail right on the head there, where there's no way that the cost structure you've got today is anything like this, right? Infrascale delivers the benefit of failover at the price point of backup. So it really is worth checking out. It's about 80% less expensive than an EMC or a Commvault or an IBM rig.
Michael also asked, are there storage limits for your cloud storage? And this is something that Ken touched on. It's pay as you grow, Michael.
Absolutely. Then Steve asks, does any backup data get stored locally, or is it all in the cloud? Steve, in both places, right? So it's storing data locally and it stores data in the cloud. Keeps it local for super fast failover, but it's also in the cloud, so if Hurricane Sandy wipes out your data center and takes your appliance with it, you're still going to be covered. All right, so Michael's got a second question. Carla, why don't you tackle that one?
From Michael, I see the Well, Steve, with the cloud failover appliance, data gets stored locally and in the cloud. So you select which data is critical to keep locally, and then you also can set policies on which data spills over into the cloud.
And then Eric's got, if the device is on premise and Hurricane Sandy hits, wouldn't it be unavailable as well? Absolutely, Eric. So as Carla was just saying, because the data is both locally and in the cloud, it doesn't matter if Sandy hits you, right? You're going to be covered. And that's a really critical part of the cloud failover appliance.
Well, Mike, so our smallest appliance is going to be 4 terabytes, and I can have someone contact you to reach out for specifics on how much you need to back up and what you're looking to protect.
And that one that Carla's talking about there starts at a few $100 a month, Mike, so it's affordable stuff. And on the high side, scales all the way up to 600 terabytes, okay? So no matter what your data payload, we've probably got a solution for you. Jim says, great presentation. My infrastructure person is pushing me purely VMware. If you've got any other infrastructure in your shop, maybe like Windows on Metal, Linux on Metal, or Hyper-V, then Veeam's not that great a solution. So would love to talk to you about that. Lawrence has got a question. Carla, you're up.
Well, Lawrence's question is an easy one. What free eval unit? So Lawrence, as Ken just mentioned, we can provide a free eval. Anyone who's interested in that free evaluation, simply type into the question tool your name, your email address. We'll reach out to you to get you set up with that.
Good stuff. And then Jamie says, if we were to use your DR, can you bring up a server backup using the same IP scheme, but at a you through how to do dynamic DNS. You've obviously dealt with this subject matter before. Good stuff. All right, Carla, back to you.
I see Michael asked, how difficult/long does it take to do the main deployment? Well, Michael, again, it's going to depend on your specific instance, but we can get you set up with that quickly and easily and get you up and running in no time.
Terrific. So Kirk says, if I'm running a recovered server in the cloud, what network mechanisms do you use to enable connectivity to the recovered relocated server, DNS, BGP, others? So Kirk, usually we'll set up a point-to-point VPN between your current on-prem infrastructure and the cloud infrastructure. We've all
I see a couple of comments from Jamie. Says happy but interested in a push button failover. That's great to hear. Paul says thanks for the pizza. You're very welcome, Paul. Let's see.
And Kirk says, is the failover enabled through existing clustering technology integration or your own clustering technology? Kirk, it's all our own technology, but it's not clustering, okay? This is failover, so you need to declare, you need to click a button or do something to actually fail it over. With a cluster, you've got a heartbeat that actually detects failure and does it automatically, or automagically, as I like to say. It backs up hosts, virtual or physical, but it doesn't necessarily back up the hypervisors they live on, right? Jonathan, that's right. Yeah, well picked. Dave says, can you describe the boot from the appliance? Is it the storage and the VM is booted from other devices, or is everything booted on the one device? Dave, everything's booted. So we move the actual VM and storage, and we can boot that either on the appliance or up in the cloud, depending upon what your failover boot and copy location. Kirk, that's right, yeah. If you're booting on the local appliance, that'll boot in seconds. If you're booting in the cloud, that can take a couple of minutes. Bill says, is there an easy formula for cost of storage? If so, what is that? Bill, it's horses for courses, mate. So it's best to probably talk to one of the folks in your territory, Chase or Rich, or you can have somebody contact if you'd like to walk through that. Kirk asks, are there tiers of appliance with differing storage levels to allow policy with more or less storage? Yes, Kirk, exactly. That's what our cloud spillover technology does. Mark asks, is it async? Need 100% performance in DR, time-sensitive apps. Asynchronous replication. When you say RPC, I'm not quite sure. I mean, I know what it is, but I'm not sure what you're asking about RPC. Yes, we have consistency groups. We call those boot groups. And yes, this works for database servers. Yes, it also scales with multiple appliances. Kirk asks, I'm assuming that the remote client data goes directly to your cloud. Is there an option to replicate data to my local appliance? Kirk, yes, there is. Paul asks what the starting price point would be. Paul, as Carla was mentioning, it starts as low as a couple $100 a month. Mark says, I'm currently utilizing EMC Recovery Point as Tier 1 and Commvault for Tier 3. Well, Mark, riddle me that. Kirk says, where are your 16 data center locations? Kirk, they 6 in America, and then we're also in Canada, Australia, South Africa, the United Kingdom, Germany, Brazil, and my memory is now failing. South Africa. Okay, thanks, Gar. Jamie wants a free eval unit. Got a question. Carl, do you want to take that?
Michael's asking, what type of customer support do you have? So, Michael, we offer 24/7 support, 365 days a year. So we're always available.
When you say that other solutions don't protect phones and road warriors, why this does? What do you mean? I'm having trouble forming the question, but if my office location gets wiped out, it sounds like my data would be up again in the cloud. How would users access it? Eric, I don't know which solution you're using today, Eric, but I bet it doesn't support your road warriors and your mobile users very easily, right? Think of a backup exec deployment. It's behind the firewall, and none of those devices can sort of get in. As for how we work, because we use a hybrid cloud architecture, all of your devices can connect to the cloud. It's omnipresent. And when it comes to recovery, yeah, Kirk says, if I'm using your product for backup, can I recover by file, by email, by DB table, or other granular recovery items? By file, yes. By email, yes. By DB table, no. But generally, the sort of recovery architecture starts at the office level, then it goes to the host level, then it goes to the system level, then it's the drive, then it's the folder, then it's the file, then it's the file version. Mode and an agent-based deployment mode. So whatever works for you. Jonathan says, do you have related solutions for scaling up my app? For instance, let's say my homepage is getting too much traffic for our hardware to handle and we need to fail over just that page. Will your solution fix that? Jonathan, not really. We're not sort of doing app performance scaling. This is all about responding to data loss or a data outage. What about intake of user data from other cloud platforms? So cloud to cloud, Kirk, we do support cloud to cloud backup. And now our last question from Kirk, can I declare retention? That, folks, brings us to the end of our Q&A. So who won what sort of giveaway is it, and who won the prize?
So our winner today is Paul Naylor. Paul, if you are still on the line, Paul has asked the most relevant on-topic questions. The giveaway, now we had a lot of people asking for that 3D printer. We had a lot of people asking also for the Xbox and for the Kindle as well. So Paul, we'll reach out to you after this presentation and we'll get you set up with your prize.
Great. Sounds like Paul's going to get to choose what he wants. Fantastic. Well, look, thanks everybody for your attention today. I hope this has been useful and educational. Please feel free to reach out to me directly, ken@infoscale.com. at infoscale.com, and I hope the pizza arrived and you enjoyed that. Otherwise, thank you and have a great day. Bye-bye now.